I'm Steph Keenan, and I'm Head of English Secondary at Ark Curriculum Plus for English Mastery. And today I'm going to introduce really sort of two central things that I think English Mastery is really good at, which is freeing up teacher time and simultaneously accelerating expertise. So if you have any questions as the webinar goes along, just throw them in the chat, because I've got Eva here manning the chat for me, and I'm going to just chuck a couple of polls at you as we go along so that I can get a sense of your needs, so that hopefully we'll be able to meet the chat. So there's Eva. Give us a wave, Eva.
So yeah, I've just put in the chat. If anyone has any questions, please just pop them in the chat and I'll pass them on to Steph. But equally at the end, we'll give everyone I'll allow everyone to talk in the function if you want to shout something out as well.
Absolutely, there'll be time at the end for questions. So I'll skip bits if I'm running behind, because I obviously want to finish on time. So the first thing I'm going to do is attempt to launch a poll to get a sense of which of these best describes your department. So would you say you're fully staffed with experienced teachers, fully staffed with some experienced teachers? I'll let you read the others. And just get a sense of, like, what are the three main barriers that you have to improving teaching in your English department? If you can see those, can you see the poll? If you can see them, just let us know now. Yeah, so we know that obviously staffing is a major issue facing all English staff rooms at the moment, but it's great to hear that some of you have got experienced teachers in the staff room, which is great. So first of all, I wanted to start with really what I think is quite unique about English Mastery, which is our track record, because we've been going for over 10 years now, and quite uniquely, I think, to a lot of curriculum providers and CPD providers, we really do have that track record and that evidence of impact. So we know what we do works. We've been going for 10 years, 2014 to 2024. And we've got a lot of feedback from our partner schools that we have impact. So these are some of the stats from our recent surveys. More consistency, students making more progress, and less time kind of magpieing for resources, that kind of desperate dash to TES or Lit Drive or wherever it is to grab a unit. There's no need to do that, because the curriculum is so thoroughly sequenced and there's a CPD embedded to go along with it. So again, we've been going for 10 years, so we have got that evidence of impact. We had the Brilliant Club survey that found we delivered an additional 4 months progress. We had an EEF research trial in 2019. Unfortunately, that was interrupted by the pandemic, but we did get some really powerful qualitative feedback, and we went back for more because we're desperate to prove our impact, because we're so confident that we really want to make sure that what we're doing is having impact. That we're currently conducting a randomized controlled trial with the EEF and Sheffield Hallam, and as far as I know, there's no other curriculum program that is doing that at the moment, and the results will be published in spring 2026. So we're very keen to engage with robust information that is going to help us improve and get even better. And I think that's quite unique with English Mastery amongst other programs. So how do we do this? Well, we're in quite a unique position. So Ark Curriculum Plus really grew out of Ark. And that means that we've obviously got that kind of crucible of the classroom. Everything has come from that. So within Ark Curriculum Plus, we've got obviously the experience and expertise of the people who work here, the teachers and leaders that have got the background that they have, and all the knowledge and expertise in terms of design, curriculum design, sequencing, curriculum and CPD. And we've got, because we're not in the classroom full time, we've got the ability to engage with the research and do the literature review to make sure that the decisions that we're making are research informed. But we also, of course, have got all the student data from not only the 23 art schools, but all our other non-art schools, our other partner schools, of which there's over 170 now in total. And in those schools, we've got the teachers, We've got the subject leaders, we have regular subject panels and teacher panels where we seek continual feedback so that we can keep improving. And of course, working really closely with Ark, they're a really well-established and really successful MAT. And I have the fabulous Leandri, the English network lead, Amy, the assessment lead, Ellen, the implementation lead. We have the reading lead, the teacher training, ATT, all that expertise that comes from Ark as a MAT. We're continually sharing expertise amongst the team. So we really do have this continual cycle of improvement that is led from the ground, from the classroom, teachers and leaders of English, but also with that kind of overview that comes from working so closely with Ark. And again, I think that's quite unique. And we have the track record of doing it for over 10 years, which again is quite unusual, I think, with other compared to other curriculum programs. So I thought I'd just start with that because I think that it's what's kind of quite robust and unique about English Mastery, the fact that that's the way we work and the fact that we have got those 10 years of track record, because a lot of people are writing their own curricula now, but we really do have that track record behind us. So yeah, one of the things that we do, I think, really well is to accelerate teacher expertise. So we very much believe that the teacher makes the difference. I think a lot of the preconceptions about curriculum programs are that, you know, we just have these robot teachers who follow a PowerPoint. That's absolutely the opposite of what we want. We provide the resources to liberate the teacher so that they can make more fine-grained decisions in the classroom. So by providing that well-sequenced resource curriculum, it doesn't mean you have to follow every line on the PowerPoint. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but it might not be the best teaching. But it means that you've got that there to then be able to engage with the class in front of you and the students in front of you. So the other thing that's unique about English Mastery is that we have the subject specialist expertise. So you have a dedicated mastery lead who connects with us at English Mastery. We set your goals for the year. We decide what personalised CPD suits you and your department. And we can have school visits and online CPD that you can sort of dip in and out of as you need to. So we're really all about not kind of just delivering PowerPoints, which I think is a real misconception. We're about resourcing teachers with the subject expertise and the resources so that they can develop their own pedagogy, their own subject knowledge, because they're not hunting around for resources. They can then think, okay, what do I need to do for my students? How do I adapt these resources for my students? And that enables them to really focus on that in more depth. So how do we do that? Well, this is our 5-step program: plan, train, teach, embed and sustain. And we've got these different layers of it, and school support and the continuing professional development is really the kind of, again, the unique aspect of English Mastery. So we don't just kind of chuck the resources at you and say, get on with it. Every school has a dedicated mastery lead. So it's often the Key Stage 3 lead or the second in department. You meet with your development lead and have a 360 survey of the whole department and a diagnostic review of what your needs are in English. And then you have that really close relationship with the mastery lead and the development lead to kind of forward plan the CPD sessions that your teachers need. And yeah, there's the call, the visits, the development sessions, and that ongoing support. So another quick CPD poll, if I can get back to my polls. I'm really interested to know what your current setup is really. And so I've got a couple of questions about that. So is the CPD that you experience mostly focused on, hold on, I need to click my screen. There we go. Does it tend to be subject specific on your knowledge and skills? Is it more how to teach, like your pedagogy, pastoral, coaching, or maybe something else? If you can see the poll in the chat, then please answer so I get a sense of what your current state of play is with your CPD. Great, glad to hear it. As an English fan, I love to hear this, that you're getting a lot of subject-specific CPD. The next question is, do you find that your CPD focus... Oh, hold on. Oh, I've missed that one out. Sorry. Does it usually change regularly or develop over time? Because I know often sometimes we find that we could have a different focus every week and then it's hard to embed things. And then is your CPD mostly led by subject specialists like lead pracs, heads of department, senior leadership or other? I mean, it might be that they're the same thing. And then the last ones were, how often do you tend to meet as a department? And how useful do you find it? And then why, really? because it can be the case that often, you know, I know as a head of department, my meetings could get really kind of swallowed up with admin, and I kind of found a workaround with that, with having a bulletin every week so that we could get our meeting focused more on CPD and what we were teaching. But I know those meetings can be can end up being quite an admin function. Cool, thank you for those answers. And if any of you have got down to the others, it would be interesting to know how you use your department time. So I really wanted to just run through the team, because one thing that I think is a real strength of ours is our range of experience. So, you know, between us, we've got a lot of years of teaching under our belt. We're not long out of the classroom, and we've worked generally as classroom teachers, heads of department, all been examiners. I've worked as an evidence lead with Greenshaw Research School and taught and mentored a lot of students as well in Teach First and so on. And we've got a real range there, with Caroline having her experience in terms of working in Approve and working in EAL and learning sign language as well. So it's not just about the years under the belt and the senior roles. I think it's really important that we've got quite a range. So Kirsty's a qualified librarian, for example. But one thing that we are is all very experienced and very kind of passionate about working with teachers in the classroom. So I just wanted to introduce you briefly to some of our team that will be working with you the most closely. So these are the people who come out on school visits, who lead the training, who write the curriculum, and who will be working most closely with you. So a very small, tight-knit team with a real complementary blend of experience and background, which I hope is reassuring if you want to work with us. And one thing that we get consistently positive feedback on is our development leads. So the people who go out and work with your teachers, 100% of them have said that it made implementation easier. So like I said before, we don't just want to kind of dump the resources on you and run. It's very much about how can we implement them in your context, because every school is different. And this came out of the EEF trial that I mentioned earlier.
Steph, we've just got a quick question in the chat.
Yeah, far away.
So we've got a question saying, we're a very diverse school. Does the programme address the needs of diverse pupils, including those with varying language proficiency levels?
Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, I would say on that front, yes, in several ways. So firstly, we have a traditional and a foundation tier in literary heritage. So traditional would be for everybody, and foundation would be for those sort of low prior attaining students. So that's one aspect. And there's a lot more scaffolding, and we might use kind of abridged versions of text or retold versions, like I've got the Oliver Twist one here. We might use the classic starts version of Oliver Twist to support, rather than diving straight into the original Dickens. So we scaffold upwards that way. Another way that we would work with that is that we use images, so that we tend to use images for characters all the way through, so that we've got that sort of shorthand. And also in writing mastery, we recommend a kind of stage, not age approach. So writing mastery goes, which is the grammar teaching element, goes from 1 to 4. And again, if you set, then you can choose some classes to do traditional and writing mastery 2, for example, in year 7, but some classes might do foundation and then do writing mastery 1 as their entry level. I mean, we have had some people say, is there anything even earlier than that, you know? And I have been in the experience of teaching Macbeth in year 11, and somebody arrives not speaking any English and they've got to do the GCSE in a month. So I do know how it is, but essentially, yeah. And in all of our schemes, we also would have scaffolding, and in the bottom of the PowerPoints, we put notes with suggestions as to how to adapt, and your mastery lead and development lead will work closely together to adapt it even further for you. And of course, in the Ark network as well, we've got teachers who work primarily with EAL schools. We've got Ark Elvin, for example, in Wembley, which has a really diverse cohort and a lot of expertise in EAL. So we've got that expertise to share as well. So yeah, I would say that's how we would approach that. But obviously, in your first meeting, no worries, yeah, in your first meeting with your development lead, we do that 360. And if you say, you know, EAL is our main issue, then we'd tailor that accordingly to your needs. And sometimes what we do as well is partner people with schools that have a similar cohort. and say, go and have a look around and see what they do. And normally partner schools are really open within the community to help each other out and say, yes, come and visit and see what we do, or share resources that they've adapted, and things like that as well. So thanks for that, because I couldn't see the chat, so much appreciated. Oh, I didn't share the results of the last poll, sorry about that. So yes, so we try and sort of tailor the feedback as much as possible, but we do already have those tiers in there. It's important to say, of course, we still do have our expectations really high, and what's a real pleasure is to go to schools like Ark Kelvin and see them teaching Animal Farm and using that fantastic tier 2 vocabulary to talk about hypocrisy and corruption, even though they are in an EAL class. So we do kind of still raise the bar and have those high expectations, and we just scaffold everyone up to get there. Thanks for the question. Do pop any others in the chat. So yeah, school support and CPD are kind of connected, but it's really important, as you say, that, you know, if we've set that goal for you and EAL is a focus area, that we'll then continue to return to that. So we tailor the CPD for you and the subject knowledge that you need. So for example, we've got some EAL training that could be tailored for you, that we could deliver in person, or that you could have access online as a recording. So it's kind of flexible, to take that example. And for everybody, we have induction training. So like I say, you don't just get the resources, we induct everyone on how the program works. Every term we have our preparing to teach and assessing for mastery webinars. So if you haven't taught Oliver Twist before, we have a unit tutorial and then a live preparing to teach session. And we also run through assessing for mastery, is where we moderate the work together, and we standardize and bring different work to the unit, from the unit to the webinar, so that we can qualitatively assess where we think our students stand in relation to others from across the network. We've also introduced certifications. So there's a teaching mastery certification and a leadership certification. So again, if you've got someone in your department who's keen to take on responsibility and qualifications, then that can be a really useful route for them. That's included in the programme. Obviously, we'll come and visit you. And there's the asynchronous video training that you can pick up if you can't get there on the day. Oh, sorry, my animations have gone a bit strange there, but yes, that's how the modules kind of work. That's the we have the live launch, how to teach the program, putting it into practice. So it's all about very much giving you the ownership of the program and implementing it for your context, not just a kind of one size fits all. We're very much about you might not be old enough to remember the Dawn French advert about Terry's chocolate orange, but she said, it's not Terry's, it's mine. It's very much like that with English mastery. We don't really want to hear you calling it Ark's curriculum. It's your curriculum that we want you to take ownership of, and all of our CPD is about that. One thing that is really important, I would say, is to have that SLT champion who, you know, is on board, and they're going to give you time to implement it properly. And particularly, you know, take on board some of the checklist things that they need to do, and take it on board that there's training that they might need to do to understand the programme, to implement it effectively. So I'd say come at it as a team, SLT, head of department, you need that buy-in to make it successful from the top. Yeah, another stat from our survey. So certainly the development leads are really effective, and also the CPD that we provide does strengthen practice and leadership. One thing that I think might be the magic ingredient for English mastery, and that you really want your SLT champion to definitely make time for, is co-planning. Now, different people might describe this in different ways, but effectively it's I think one of the best ways you can use time with your department. So every unit we provide co-planning resources, and you can see that's an example of a resource there that I've just been updating for Oliver Twist, actually, and I've put another one in there. Actually, we've got tricky topics, Fagin and anti-Semitism, but I've also put another one in there now about grooming and abuse, because obviously there's a lot of violence there towards Nancy, and he is effectively a sort of Victorian version of County Lines, really. With Fagin's kind of childhood gang. So I've just updated that one since I put it in here as well. So we're always reviewing and updating, but essentially we provide you with a route through for your co-planning meetings, because we know that we have such a short amount of time. If you've got that department time, how do you do the highest leverage activities to make it really, really worthwhile. And Hattie has said that the co-planning of lessons is the task that has one of the highest likelihoods of making a positive difference on student learning. And of course, it makes sense, doesn't it, to learn from the expertise of the people in your department, and to get two heads are better than one, to think, okay, we're teaching Oliver Twist, we've got this midway essay on the Artful Dodger. Let's have a look at an extract together. How are we going to approach this? How would you write that essay? How would you teach that series of lessons? How are we going to get the best out of our students, and really atomize how to get great analytical writing out of them? So in this co-planning booklet, you may not have time to do all of them, but again, you can sort of pick out the sessions that are most useful to you. If you know that you need to work on analytical writing, or if you know that you've got inexperienced teachers who might struggle with tricky topics, then you can hop in and use that booklet as kind of a menu to pick your co-planning sessions. So co-planning to us is it's a timetabled session with your department. Your mastery lead or your head of department or an experienced teacher might lead it. You can use our materials, and over time sometimes people make their own based on our materials. And essentially it's focused entirely on subject knowledge and curriculum understanding. So you would prepare for a unit by perhaps doing a lesson study, or taking an extract and close analysing it, and working together to just adapt those materials for your specific students. And again, this is what it might look like.
Steph, we've got a quick question about co-planning, which you've already kind of started to address already.
Yeah.
But how often do you recommend co-planning? So you said it's timetabled, so the frequency of that, and then is there guidance for all units?
Yeah, there is. So we're currently rewriting literary heritage kind of from Oliver Twist onwards, from year 7 onwards. So I'm updating them into booklets, and we're updating those. But yeah, ideally weekly, because most people have a weekly department meeting. So we would say try and get your admin done as quickly as possible, or into a bulletin or something similar, and use that department time for co-planning. If that's not possible, you might have situations where you've got like a mentor and an ECT, and you could take one of the co-planning sessions and do that together as part of the subject knowledge development, and sort of do it in pairs, because obviously you've got Key Stage 4, you might have Key Stage 5 as well. It might be hard to focus on Key Stage 3 every week. So that's why I've done it as a menu, so that you can hop in, and you may not have time to do all of them. That booklet is for the whole of the autumn term, but you might think, okay, well, I'd like these 2 teachers in my department to focus on developing analytical writing, and perhaps they could share their resources, and I'm going to get these guys to adapt the lessons on tricky topics and give us a little a briefing on that. So you can kind of, you can't do it as a whole department, you could also kind of split into smaller groups perhaps, and work it out that way. But yes, we would recommend weekly, as in your weekly department meeting, so that the shift of focus is kind of away from admin and towards that subject knowledge and that curriculum adaptation, so that you're making it yours and for your students. But I appreciate, that's why I asked the question earlier about department time, because we used to have one department meeting every half term at my old school, and I campaigned hard to change that, but I know it can be a reality. It might be worth launching this poll now, actually, to see whether anyone currently has co-planning time, and or what does it look like if you do. So I'll just leave that one there. So yeah, it might have things like kind of reading and close annotating a passage, or writing the answer. A really good one that I like to do is get everyone together and write the final assessment essay together. And then you've got a load of models, but you've also realised what your process is and how hard it might be for your students to write that essay, and what you need to do beforehand. Fab. So yeah, what co-planning isn't, I guess, it's really about that intellectual preparation for the lesson, sharing your expertise in the department, harnessing that subject knowledge and skills that you might have, and also a kind of consistency as well, because I've been in some sessions where everyone plans essays in a slightly different way, and obviously if you've got students moving from class to class, it can be quite useful to say, well, what's our model for teaching analytical writing, what's our best practice, and getting that consistency as well. We think it's really essential, not a bolt-on. It's not about fiddling with slides, it's about the prep with the text and how you're going to teach it. It's not quite the same as department time, like I said, the admin element, and it's not just about the resources, it's about your knowledge of the text and your knowledge of the pedagogy of how you're going to teach that text to your specific students. Yeah, so I've asked the poll already. I have got a video that might explain it a bit better.
We can't hear it at the moment, Steph.
Oh, that's no good then. All right, thanks for telling me. What I'll do is I'll maybe be able to send the slides afterwards so that you can hear it. Oh, that's a shame. I thought
Yep,
I
I
was
can
doing so
send
well.
out the slides afterwards to everyone so that they can access it, and I can put the video as a separate link within the email as well.
Thanks, Eva. Sorry, I did try, but it was obviously beyond my technical capability to have a video and sound this time. But we'll try again. Okay. So yeah, moving on to the curriculum then. So, you know, essentially I think a big misconception is that, you know, English Mastery is just the resources, and it is fabulous resources and a great, well-sequenced, ambitious curriculum. But I wanted to start with the record of our impact and start with the CPD because it's such a core part of what we do. And we believe that success and implementation is absolutely about having that woven in CPD. So interestingly, I do spend probably more time than I should on Twitter. Great fan of Mary Myatt, think she's fab. And she had a thread last week that I thought really spoke to what I know of the English Mastery curriculum. And she said this. And I thought, well, that's exactly the feedback that we get from teachers who've used our curriculum. They say, I've become a better teacher by teaching this curriculum and by using your resources, because through writing mastery, my grammar knowledge has improved and I'm now more confident to teach grammar. And through teaching Oliver Twist, I'm now more confident with 19th century literature. Or through teaching poetry, I now feel confident in tenor, vehicle and ground. So we have, this really rang true for me, and I thought I must pop it in today's webinar because I felt like something that we see day in, day out with our teachers. It's not just the CPD that improves, it's the actual teaching of the sequence curriculum that does that for teachers as well, and very frequently with grammar as well. So this is the outline of our curriculum. We have our 4 curriculum pillars. Knowledge, very popular for everyone to say knowledge rich today, but we did it first. We have been going for 10 years. So knowledge, of course, grammar, vocabulary and assessment. And again, you know, tier 2 and 3 vocabulary is sort of everywhere now, but we were among the first people to really embed that into our units. And it is a great success of the programme that people will come back and say, oh, they're using vulnerable in the next, they had vulnerable for Oliver Twist and they're using it again in the next unit. And these, you know, these really often with low prioritizing students are using this really high quality vocabulary, and that's a real strength of the programme. So within that, those are our pillars which hold up the curriculum, or if you like, they're kind of interwoven through the curriculum. And these are the components. So literary heritage is probably most familiar to most English teachers. That is our literature strand. We have writing mastery, which is probably the most unusual for a lot of English teachers. It's a kind of explicit instruction grammar program which teaches grammar in such a way that students can become fluent and able to write in such a way that they're not thinking about have they put a full stop in, because they've practiced it to automaticity. So that's our grammar and writing program. We do also have extended writing that's connected to that. So we have a creative writing unit, a descriptive writing unit, a rhetoric unit that builds on that grammar instruction. So it isn't just drilling. We do have a lot more explicit and we have extended writing schemes as well as the explicit instruction of the Writing Mastery Grammar Programme. Reading for Pleasure, we've done a lot of work with our Reading for Pleasure working party within Ark and our partner schools to really develop this recently in terms of text selection. It's an opportunity to really choose the texts that are right for your context, and we've got a lot of advice and a strong research base in how to really implement a powerful Reading for Pleasure programme or Reading for Pleasure curriculum that complements the main curriculum. And it's a lot of fun creating those with schools. And then spoken language, there's a lot of fuss about oracy, but of course in English we've always had spoken language. It's been a bit squeezed out by the current GCSE, but we very much prioritise spoken language, and that goes from, you know, things like our oracy pedagogy and lessons like turn and talk and write, pair, share and think, pair, share. That's all signposted in the units, but we also have, like I mentioned, our rhetoric unit, and we look at reading fluency when students are working on our Ancient Tales unit, so that they're reading out stories, and we really try to build that confidence in exploratory talk and presentational talk as well. So those are our pillars and our components. I think I'll flick through that quickly so we don't run out of time. So this is what the curriculum map looks like. And again, I'm happy to answer any further more in-depth questions. But you will see that literary heritage is the majority of the curriculum. Sorry, just looking at the chat just pinged at me. Yeah, so literary heritage is the majority of the curriculum there. At 50%, we have writing mastery, which I spoke about earlier, which is our writing program based on strong grammar instruction foundations. And we have our reading for pleasure spine, which is our most adapted component. So some people do it in tutor time, some people do it in a separate lesson or a library lesson. Some people combine it with reading intervention, and then spoken language. So we have discrete spoken language lessons for each unit for exploratory talk and those mini spoken language units I spoke about earlier. So you'll notice that there's some patterns in the curriculum. So we've obviously designed each element of the curriculum to complement and build on the previous unit. So we're constantly building on prior knowledge. So you can see that we've got a Victorian novel studied all the way through each autumn term, Oliver Twist's Sherlock Holmes, sorry, not a novel, short stories, and Jane Eyre. And we also follow drama through with the 2 mandatory Shakespeare texts, and then Small Island we introduced a couple of years ago, which has been really successful in Year 9. But some people still do Romeo and Juliet, which was our legacy play in Year 9. And then we have the strand through of poetry, which is kind of the metaphor and allegory strand. So poetry goes along with Animal Farm there. And we also have our sort of writing for speaking. So Ancient Tales would write a story and perform it, rhetoric, write and perform a speech, and reading for study is our non-fiction unit, which kind of is a transition unit really into Key Stage 4. So again, I can answer more questions about the curriculum in detail. Sorry, I forgot I had those animations on there. The other element that we have, as well as the units and the progression, is this conceptual progression. So in Year 7, we have the idea of morality. So students will be exploring those narratives which essentially might have quite a straightforward moral. They've got a right and a wrong, a hero and a villain, a protagonist and an antagonist. So story structures might be more traditional, myths, legends, quests, narratives, and they're exploring the nature of morality. And at this point, we're trying to get them to think about the text as the creation of an author. Then in Year 8, we start to move towards duality. So students are exploring text with dual characters, so Sherlock or Caliban in The Tempest. And while they're looking at the dual characters, they're also invited to explore duality of interpretation. So it may be this, or it could be that. So we're asking them to think about dual interpretation. Then in Year 9, we move to multiplicity. So we start to get increasingly complex characters and maybe multiple layers of meaning, because we're trying to get them towards that GCSE study. So that's the conceptual underpinning which takes us through each year, and that underpins the choice of text and the kind of development of the analytical writing and literary heritage as we go through it as well. So yeah, in summary, those are our pillars, those are our components. There's the 3 conceptual stages, and coming back to Mary Meyer, that idea that not only are you helping the students through that, but you're also developing your teachers by giving them those really high quality texts and components and concepts to work with. So it's I thought that really rang true for me, that's how English mastery very much works. So another core, sorry, go on, more chat.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. So
yeah,
the first question you may well be about to answer now. So it says, which assessment strategies are used to evaluate progress within the programme? And then the other question is then, how does the curriculum cater to students with special educational needs or language barriers?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll go to assessment first, and then I'll come back to SEND and EAL or language barriers. So hopefully the assessment bit might address some of those questions. So I've got my poll there that I'll just share. Yes, okay. So I wanted to ask you first, really, how do you currently assess in Key Stage 3 English? So do you tend to have a lot of data drops? Do you have termly essays? Do you have quizzes, multiple choice quizzes, or a mixture of those? And then how effective do you think your current assessment model is? So that's in the chat if people are there.
I've just closed that poll because that was the co-planning one. If there's a different one for
Oh,
assessment.
sorry. It says a poll have been launched in this meeting. Hopefully has that gone through? Key Stage
The
3
first one
assessment
did,
poll.
but it was the same one. It was the co-planning one.
Oh, okay. Why is that not
Showing the
on?
results
Oh,
from that
hold on.
one.
Maybe I haven't pressed launch.
There we go.
Is it
Yeah,
there?
bingo.
Oh, thanks, Eva.
That's
Thank
all
you.
right.
Sure, there is my eyes because I think it's gone and it hasn't gone. Great. Yeah. So, how do you currently assess in English? How effective do you think your current assessment model is, and why do you think that? I'll just give you a moment to answer. Yeah, there was a really interesting blog today. I don't know if any of you are on Twitter, but Dr. Sam Sims published something that was about data drops for assessment. And he was saying one of the quickest ways to save time without losing anything would be to address some of those data drops. So if you're interested, I'll share the link with you later. But I was just reading that at lunchtime today, and it made me think, yeah, that chimes with us very much so in English mastery as well. So in terms of assessment, we have a very clear model. Sorry, my screen is not moving on there. There it is. Which essentially is that we focus primarily on formative assessment for the majority of our Key Stage 3 assessment, because the main point of assessment is surely to work out where our students are so that we can address their misconceptions and errors and move them forward, and to inform our next teaching. So within lessons and units, we have our retrieval quizzes. They're all kind of written for you. We have them provided. We have them on MS Forms and Google quizzes as well, so they're electronic. And we're also putting in now and in our updated units a biggest Excel spreadsheet with all the questions in that you can carve up and use how you want, or add your own questions to as well. We include notes on misconceptions, so things that we know that students commonly get wrong. We'll put that in the unit intent, or we'll put that in the assessment so that you know that might be quite common that they get that wrong. We have our do now tasks, which again are likely to focus on likely gaps in knowledge, retrieval focus, or again those kind of common misconceptions. We have regular grammar tests and grammar checks, so we call them mastery checks for accuracy of writing. Hinge point questions. We provide reteach, so after a fortnightly quiz or an assessment, we would say, okay, well, which ones have they got wrong? We're going to go back and we're going to reteach that to make sure that they're secure in that knowledge. And we provide those reteach resources as well for your students. The fortnightly quizzes we now call checkpoint assessments, but essentially they are short multiple choice quiz questions that aim to identify where your students have and haven't understood and learned what you've intended them to, what have they remembered, what do they know. And then for every lesson, we also have an MCQ on the exit ticket as well. So there's a lot of retrieval going on continually, and we've selected a variety of types of knowledge. So some of it will be discrete, so it will be kind of factual recall knowledge. Some of it will be more subtle, so we're asking them to infer or to match a topic sentence to a quotation. So we're looking at more sort of disciplinary skills, but we've carefully selected a mixture of questions that will test the English knowledge that we're intending them to retain. And then at the end of the unit, we have a longer multiple choice quiz, so 40 questions, less for entry level. So we've got an entry level assessment, which is for those learners who do not have who are not at chronological reading age, or who might be receiving phonics instruction. So we have a different assessment for that. And we have a writing task, an extended writing task, which is usually an essay. But again, we don't recommend that you need to kind of mark it numerically or have a grade necessarily. It's very much about formative assessment, comparative judgment, and working out what can my students do and what can't they do, and what am I going to teach next time to make sure they can do it even better. And to help with that, we have our exemplification booklet. So we have a selection of student work that you can compare your student work to and think, okay, well, these are the highest models of excellence. This is where we're aiming for our students to get to. My student is around this level. What can they and can't they do that's going to get them to improve their work to the highest model that we've got there? So our focus is very much on that, that the assessment is designed to give us the information we need to make good judgments for our students, and to teach the thing next that they need to make progress. And that means engaging with the stuff of the work rather than putting lots of numbers into a spreadsheet on regular data drops. And to help you do that, we provide booklets of guidance which guide you through good assessment practice, and that comes along with the assessment as well, which are and models of how to do that with your department as well. So we'd have things like, okay, sort of a table or something that you can fill out with the department. Well, what were our students doing well? What were they not doing so well? What are we going to do next time? What lesson in the next unit are we going to address that in? What are we going to do next year with our next people who are doing Oliver Twist in the following cohort, so that you're always planning ahead to address the problems that your students are having. Another core pillar of our assessment model is comparative judgment. So rather than using mark schemes or rubrics, because those performance descriptors can be really problematic, as I think Daisy Christodoulou's written about very effectively, we suggest that you use comparative judgment about relative quality rather than saying, oh, is this a 4+ or a 4-, or is it, how much is it out of 100? Because English is very subjective anyway, and putting numbers on a Key Stage 3 piece of work, what are you going to use? GCSE grades, descriptors, whatever numbers you're going to use are going to be fairly imprecise. So we would say use that relative, qualitative, comparative judgment of real student work, so that you can get the insights that will help you to improve the work and to forward plan, adapt the curriculum resources to address the problems that the students are having. So summative assessment wise, we do have an end of unit essay. If you want to collect grades, or your school says you need to, you can, but we only recommend doing that once a year in year 7, 8 and 9. And these are the tools that we provide to you. So we understand that a lot of schools do have to collect data, and we understand that, but so there are the resources there to do that. And we also help by every cohort and every unit, we write an examiner's report. So much like the GCSE one, we would say, okay, well, this is the work we've seen, this is what students are doing well, and this is what they need to improve. And we provide that for you with every cohort from across the whole network of our partner schools, because we obviously see a really wide range of scripts. And again, there's a lot of guidance and support and diagnostic analysis of the quizzes as well. So there's a lot of guidance provided around assessment, because we know it's something that is a real struggle in English, and can be really difficult to achieve kind of good quality judgments and effective next steps. So we do provide a lot of guidance around that, and your mastery lead and development lead will work very closely around that as well. But a lot of resources, the exemplification booklets are really helpful, the guidance is really useful, and we have the Assessing for Mastery CPD to help you further. So we also have all of the kind of diagnostic analysis from Ark, which is helpful around the quizzes, and we share that with our partner schools as well. Assessing for Mastery, we do each time there is an assessment, an end of unit assessment, so you can compare your work with students from partner schools nationally. We have really rich discussions about the quality of the work. we sharpen our accuracy in that sense. So by looking at comparatively, we're able to think, okay, well, I thought that was here, but now I can see it's more here. So that those relative judgments, it's quicker. You can quickly put all your scripts into a rank order much more quickly than you can decide whether they're a sort of 32 or a 34 or whatever it might be. And that's less useful as well. It's more consistent across the department. And like I said before, it's all about forward planning because you're aiming to close the gaps that you're noticing in the work. Yeah, and we do find often the feedback is, oh, wow, did a year 7 do that? Okay, maybe our year 7s could do that too. And there's a raising of expectations because you're seeing what other people are doing in year 7, 8 and 9 in all our partner schools. So we have found that there's a side effect that it kind of raises the bar and it raises students can achieve at different ages and stages. In terms of the resources, I'll flick through them fairly quickly. I think hopefully the fact that it's taken me this long to get to the resources shows you that we're not just about providing you with curriculum resources. It's a much more kind of 360 approach than that. But what you will be provided with in terms of resources is really extensive. So you get planning resources, the curriculum map, the progression maps. We also, every time there's a subject review or something like that, we'll put something on the platform My Mastery that updates you, national curriculum aims and so on. We've got how it's all mapped to the curriculum. For every unit, you get a unit intent document, a unit overview, so your kind of medium-term plan with all the lesson details on unit videos. So, and we also have like interactive Genially tutorials for CPD. And the co-planning resources that I mentioned earlier. In terms of teaching, we've got the lesson slides, obviously, but you can very well minimize the use of slides and work a lot with the visualizer. We encourage that. You don't have to be dependent on the slides. The student booklets are all pre-planned and made for you. Knowledge organizers are included. We have all the quizzes that are mapped out all the way through, the retrieval quizzes, the do nows, the fortnightly checkpoint quizzes, and the reteach resources to close gaps. And we have modelling. So for every assessment, for example, or every task, we would have a model prepared for you. Again, you can always hide that and live model if you're more experienced. We don't expect experienced teachers to necessarily use our model, and they could very well create one live with the class themselves. But for those ECTs who might be learning how to model, we'll guide how to do that as well. And then we also have linked reading lists. So based on Oliver Twist, we might have lots of coming of age stories for reading for pleasure, or things that are thematically linked about childhood or Victorian London that will be for reading for pleasure. And there's homework booklets that are linked to the reading spine. But again, those are optional, and you can design your own in line with your own context. So the unit intent looks something like this. So you'd have what your students would need to know, remember and do. And we're aiming to sort of identify that transferable knowledge. So by that, I mean something like you might not need to know all the details of the plot of Oliver Twist, but you would want your students to have that residual knowledge around, what a Victorian novel is like, or what Victorian London was like, or maybe what a coming of age Bildungsroman narrative is like, or why you might have a vulnerable protagonist or a child protagonist, and what a protagonist and antagonist might look like in the sense of Oliver versus Bill Sykes or Fagin. So we're aiming to get that transferable knowledge rather than necessarily all the details of the plot, more having that transferable knowledge that they'll take forward then to the study of Victorian literature through to GCSE. So we really believe in specifying all of the knowledge, because otherwise how can we assess it? So we start with the unit intent, because without that we don't know what they're supposed to know and remember and be able to do, which sounds really obvious, but it supports the accuracy of assessment because we've specified what they need to know in the first place. The unit overview looks a bit like this. So you've got every lesson and then the elements of it, the do now, explanations, the activity, and the plenaries. So that will give you the mastery knowledge for each lesson, the overview of the flow of the lesson, and you can get that overview. And again, all these lessons can be edited by more experienced teachers or for different classes. And we do have the foundation and the traditional, and we have the 2 different versions as well. Then we have the slides. So they look something like this. We've got opportunities for review, checking your work, peer review, quizzes and retrieval tasks are all there. We've got the decks for all the lessons, for all the strands. You can edit them and make them fit your school needs. And in the notes section, some people don't read it, but we do put guidance in the notes section there, should you need it as well. And then, of course, we've got the student booklet. So all of the resources are in one booklet, so it'll save you time, and it's all there for you already, which is laid out like so. All the tasks and activities are in there, and we have the foundation, the traditional, again, as we said, and the knowledge organisers are in there as well. So yeah, we're into the sort of last 10 minutes, so I'll just whiz through. One of the nicest things I think about working English Mastery is that we have the community of all our partner schools. So, you know, one of the first reasons I kind of got onto Twitter when I was a teacher and a head of department is because I wanted to know what everyone else was doing, you know, and find out and learn from people who were in different contexts or similar contexts or more experienced than me. And I think that's the great thing about the English Mastery community, is that we've got a lot of schools in a lot of difficult situations working really hard at the same things, and we can share that, and that's really, really powerful, I think. So this is us at the conference this year, some of us. So every year we have a conference, and we also have in-person events, so live CPD, where we would run our kind of assessing for mastery or preparing to teach. We'd be there in person. You really get to know your development leads, and you know, get a really good relationship with those. They're a great team who come out and visit the schools. That expertise is second to none, really. So we're able to say, oh, you could talk to this head of department, or you could go to that school and visit them and find out what they're doing. And you just get that mutual support across the network, really. And you know, we also have working parties, so things like the Reading for Pleasure working party. People can get involved in and recommend you know, books for reading for pleasure and things like that. So there's a real opportunity to be part of that community, and I get a lot from it all the time. This is what they say. The conference survey, they thought the opportunities to network were good or excellent. So, and that's all of us again at the conference this year with our enormous badges. They were huge. Again, this is a video which I don't think we'll be able to get the sound for, so I will skip that. And oh, I thought I had one more thing that I wanted to share with you, but yeah, I was going to say that the thing that people tend to find most helpful is that not only do they save time with the resources, but they also are able to work more as a community through the co-planning and the expertise that is shared. So the nice thing about it is, I think, not only are we aiming to sort of save our teachers time, but we're also hoping to get them to work more closely together and really get that enjoyment in their subject back by engaging with the text and how they teach it. So those are the most common sort of things that people feedback, is that you know, not only can they see the benefits for the students, but also from themselves. So yes, I've got just time for a few questions. So
Steph, we have one in the chat which is asking about specific research or evidence to support the effectiveness of the curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of questions there. I've got one from Leanne, first of all, about the special educational needs and language barriers. So yeah, I mean, what I said before about we've got writing mastery, which is the stage, not age. So that is one way in for the grammar, and also traditional and foundation. And we've also got an entry level assessment, which is a kind of mix of more accessible questions and also an extended writing task that isn't a full essay. So there's scaffolding within there. And then I guess I would also say I'm thinking about that SEND pyramid, you know, with a universal offer for everybody at the bottom. We would say that through quality first teaching, you have got the kind of instruction that's embedded in our curriculum that is going to be good for all learners, including those with special educational needs and language barriers. If they've got an EHCP, to a certain extent, that's some of those things are going to be school-based, and some of them are going to be system-wide, you know, because we know what the challenges are for students accessing the support that they need with EHCPs. So some of those things will be down to the school. For example, it's the same with reading. You know, we don't have a sort of reading intervention program. We'd recommend something like you know, Lexia. A lot of our schools might use Lexia or another Read Write Inc or something like that, or Lexonics. So we wouldn't also provide that, because that's sort of for students who are below their reading age. So I'd say you can use English Mastery in conjunction with other useful strategies and programs for students that have really specialized needs or that are significantly below chronological reading age, which I would use as a good marker. But within the curriculum, it is also scaffolded, and it is the kind of instruction and curriculum design that is aimed to support all students, because quality first teaching will support those students, you know, depending on their level and complexity and nuance of need, because every student is going to be different. The curriculum is designed to support students at that kind of universal bottom of the pyramid basis, with really clear instruction, really clear modelling, really good questioning, lots of checks for understanding, always encouraging, you know, participation and thinking ratio. So the quality is kind of baked in that will help all of those students. But I would say, obviously, some of the need is going to be specialist, nuanced, complex, and we do have CPD to support with that, but some of that will be down to the school and the context that you're in. And same with EAL, we can help, you know, up to a point at the you know, along the lines of, if somebody, like I said, you know, the student who arrives in year 11 and has to do Macbeth, there's only so, you know, there's only so much that our curriculum can do for that. But we can certainly point in the direction of translations and software, and again, the partnerships and the network really help with that, I think. So if we haven't got a resource, probably someone that we know has, and we can point you in the right direction. Yeah, and the research, I can find the link and pop it in the study for the Brilliant Club report, which was the first study that we had done. It's on the English Mastery Ark Curriculum Plus website. I haven't got the link to hand now, but that found 4 months of additional progress. Then there's also the EF report from 2019, the one that was interrupted by the pandemic. So we were hoping to get, you know, statistically significant research, because it was a randomized controlled trial, but the pandemic interrupted. So what we've got is lots of qualitative research. So I can certainly point you in the direction of that as well. And then the next one is we're undertaking now. So we've got our control schools and our English Mastery schools that are taking part in the trial now with the EF and Sheffield Hallam. So that won't be out until next year, but that's underway now, because we are keen to kind of test the efficacy of our program, and I don't think there are other schools out there that have got similar. And then of course there's the Ark school, you know, results and Ofsteds and all that kind of thing, which are all publicly available as well, and the progress that students are making within that. So I can share a couple of links with you, Leanne, about that, or give us a call and you know, give us a call and find out a bit more. If anyone wants to unmute and have a chat, or just ask me any questions personally, or if anything wasn't clear, do hop in and unmute and uncamera, unveil yourselves if you want to say hi, because I'd love to just meet you if you want to. And otherwise might unleash my final poll if I can find it, which was really just to say, I hope you found it helpful. Actually, Eva, I think I might have shut it down now.
I've tweaked the settings anyway, so that everyone who's an attendee is now able to unmute and shout out if they'd like to.
Oh, great. Fantastic. So yeah, by all means, just unmute and hang out, and I'll share my assessment poll, and I'll go back and get the last one, which is the feedback poll. And I think I've launched that. So yeah, I hope you found it useful. Probably rushed through a little bit. The current poll,
Steph, sorry, is the Key Stage 3 assessment one.
Oh yeah, hold on, I've done the wrong thing again. Launch. There we go. It's a big button, but somehow I missed it both times. So yeah, do say hi and have a chat if you want to ask me anything, or you can always DM me. I'm on Twitter as @headoфenglish. If you want to find me there, you can always message me. And there is our address. There's a QR code, and I think we've got Eva on the next slide in a very smiley picture. There she is. That's Eva's address. Again, if you want to email us.
yeah, if anyone would like any more information about our programs, I'm happy to book in a call. I've got a lovely